committee. Do we have any apologies, substitutions or declarations of interest?
Convener, we have apologies from Councillor Nelson, with Councillor Armstrong substituting. Roll call.
Yep.
The following councillors please indicate they're present at the meeting. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
In the chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present in chamber.
Councillor McCabe.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah, convener for yourself, just on the employability of being a member of the trust that a councillor appointing you onto the trust.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Convener, just with respect to agenda item number 13, which talks about governance of certain organisations. I am a member via council on Riverside and Clyde's office prevention. That's just for transparency.
Okay.
And again, that'll be the same to you as well.
Thank you, application to item 5 on the agenda by reason of a relatively board of Inverclyde Care Centre. I've applied the objective test and I don't consider that I'm interested in player because although this report considers a decision, it's not in relation to an award to that particular organisation.
Okay, Colin.
Just as a member of Inverclyde Community Development Personnel and on the procurement 5 and 6 as a contractor and supply at Inverclyde Council, I just a bit of transparency.
Okay, that's all. Okay. Thanks very much. I'll start with the opening statement.
Sorry, declaration.
Sorry, Elizabeth. Okay.
Thank you. So paper 5, paper 7 and paper 13. Paper 5 for Stepwell and financial fitness, paper 7 for Stepwell and paper 13 for Stepwell. I previously had a financial relationship with Stepwell, but that's no the case for this financial year. However, they still ignore my declaration of interest, my register of interest, sorry, as a councillor because we're required to do so for a period of time under our conditions. So I don't have a financial interest that I previously had, and so I don't feel that I have to leave the room for any of the matters regarding the organisation.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. Anyone else? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, this meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the council's website. The council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record council meetings to fulfil a public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with council published policies available through the council's website. Members of the council are reminded that they should follow the council's established meetings protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay. So we'll move on to the agenda, and item number 2 is the revenue outturn and revenue budget. Matt?
Thank you, convener. Yeah, this is the standard revenue report. It doesn't actually include the outturn we reported that last cycle. The standard revenue report for period 5 to August. Members will see from the summary, we're now showing a £37,000 overspend. Now that's a significant improvement since last period. It's a reduction of £246,000. It's largely due to an increase in turnover savings. The Securities Management team have been reviewing their budgets and where possible to try and bring the committee back into line, and they'll continue to do so. Details are included in section 3 and appendices, and I wouldn't intend to go through them in any detail, but I'm happy to take any questions if you've got them.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Yeah, Chris.
Yes, maybe it might not be for Matt, though. Just with respect to the under shortfall and planning income, and we note that a lot of that, it says it's identified as being due to current staffing shortages. Just wondering, is that having an impact on services and whether or not there is a plan in place to try and improve it?
Sure.
There is a recruitment process underway. Councillor Curley and I think adverts are actually covered for a number of staff.
Stephen?
It was all along similar lines. I was just looking for an understanding of the additional, suppose, turnover savings, whether they were sort of, I suppose, managed savings. We were trying to make savings to reduce the deficit, whether they were a result of difficulties in recruiting and what sort of areas that these additional turnover savings were occurring in.
Sure.
The planning service does have a significant bearing in the turnover savings, Councillor McCabe. You'll recognise that there's currently vacancies at head of service, manager and senior planning and planner levels. So that's contributing quite significantly, but of course the whole of the directorate, there are a number of vacancies which are proving difficult to fill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? John?
Thank you, Convener. It's relating to the environment of the 27k Rankin Park 2 communities. I was just wondering if that was in respect to the indoor tennis facility. And also in Appendix 4, there is repopulation promoting Inverclyde, which there's 157k funding. I know that there is an action plan was not forthcoming from the repopulation group, which is worrying to say the least. And as Inverclyde's population has been declining for a number of years and is forecast to do so in future years, I was just wondering if it's possible if the report that's coming to the CMT can either a copy of this report be made available to councillors, or could a paper be presented to committee?
Matt?
Sorry, Convener, the Rankin Park, I'm not actually sure exactly what that's for. Apologies for that. I'm just trying to find out while I speak to you on that one. What was the other question, sorry?
While Matt's looking for the answer to Rankin Park,
Okay.
Councillor Crowell certainly will bring a report to the committee in respect of the repopulation action plan.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, apologies, I'm just trying to find this out. Sorry, I was off last week when this report was put in, so I am struggling slightly with it. Yes, it is for maintenance facility, sorry, that's correct. Sorry about that. Apologies, Convener.
Okay. Okay, Andrew?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? No. Can we agree recommendations? Thank you. Item number 3 is a capital report. Eddie and Gail, you want to take us through this?
Thanks, Convener. I mean, beyond what's in the report, there's only probably a couple of projects worth highlighting specifically, and that's on the cremator replacement project. And obviously, there's a note in there regarding the use of emergency powers to get that project progressed and the additional funding allocations required to do so. And the other one, just to draw to your attention, is the City Deal project and the Green Ocean Terminal. And although that project's now progressing towards completion, it is reporting behind again from the last committee. The contractor's currently targeting a completion in December, and the power on date was quite a difficult one to achieve. That only happened this week, and that has not assisted the process. So I don't know if Gail has anything that she wants to raise specifically.
Okay, Gail?
Thank you, Convener. I don't have anything specific to add to the report, but I'm happy to take questions on anything contained within.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's great to see the Green Ocean Terminal progressing, although I understand the difficulties with the connection to Scottish Power, etc. David, I don't know what the protocol is, but at the appropriate time, I underline appropriate time, could a site visit, could members of this committee or members of the council be permitted a site visit before it's opened?
Yep, sure.
Very convener, absolutely.
Thank you.
John?
Thank you, convener. If we could first focus on 3.9, that's the flood risk management plan. And while the report mentions the progress in the two areas, Butters Water and Glen Mosman, we have also in the past had a number of papers covering areas such as the Bouverie Burn, Cartsburn, the Line of Fall, Holborn, and glad to say that progress has now been made in the Ladyburn. But while this is most welcome, does the management plan also include areas of flooding that are not associated with water courses? For example, Westmoreland Road and the Bow Road, Inverkip Road junction, which are subject to regular flooding. If they are not included, can I request that the management plan be amended that areas which are not associated with water courses, for example, the areas that I had mentioned, plus any similar other areas which are subject to flooding, but that flooding is not associated with water courses, could they be added? That was the first question. 3.12, the Inverclyde traffic study. Does that study include only A-class, B-class, C-class and unclassified roads, i.e. is it universal? It's just about how exactly widespread is the study. And the final one is 3.33, that's the sea walls and retaining walls. And we find that now. That one there, hold on, I'll give the right one. It's to do with the complexities of understanding the ownership, as many of these seawalls have actually been on committee papers that were previously received, identifying land that was owned by Peel and Riverside Inverclyde, which did include many areas fronting the River Clyde. As the identification process proceeds, would it be possible that the next paper that is presented to councillors also identifies the areas that come under the ownership of the council?
Thanks, Sean. Gail, do you want the first two, the water courses and is the study universal?
Yes, thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. Gordon's on the call, so he'll keep me right. The flood risk management plan is for water courses, and surface water management plans are for actual that's contained within the public road network, so surface water that falls onto sort of our drainage system. And there are key locations that we do monitor and identify for prioritisation for repair works, but we don't have a full surface water management plan currently. And I know that's something that we have been considering about how we would progress that. But no, it doesn't sit within the flood risk management plan currently. And in relation to the traffic survey, Gordon might be best placed to come in on that about the extent.
Gordon?
Yeah, thank you. The extent is the whole of Inverclyde at the moment. At the moment, it's only looking at high level areas to try and hone down. So once we've discovered the high areas or the high impact areas, then it will hone down into separate different studies. So yes, it does include every single road in Inverclyde, but it's probably only the ones that are impacted by severe disruption.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Okay. The third point was the sea walls. Eddie, do you want to speak to that?
Usually it's Eddie was the
Thanks, convener. So you convener. Okay to come in now. So the thing that's holding us back from actually getting this mapped and completed is simply resource. So it's quite a task to try and get an accurate representation of who owns what. So at the moment we're kind of currently liaising with our colleagues in roads who have got the GIS mapping and the most up-to-date map of the coastline. We will try and identify all of the different ownerships across that coastline. To get that 100% accurate would involve legal input, internal and external. So I think the first step is to try and get it to a point where we hope it's at least 75–80% correct, and then we need to follow up with the further legal checks. And I honestly couldn't say how long that will take, Councillor, because it's a difficult process, as we've referred to in the report.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand it as a very complex to fully identify, but it was really just to get some sort of rough guidance on what has currently been identified, and when a further paper comes forward, if that could be included, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay, Chris.
Yep, absolutely. We're working towards that. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Michael. Just a couple of points. Just first of all, in respect to 3.5, second water and safer streets. I note that officers are second signing the following reserve schemes, and obviously a lot of schemes are referred to there. I was just wondering when, as councillors, we maybe get oversight of these schemes and an opportunity to provide comment on them. And also just one on a scheme that's missing here. We've also had email communication from officers with respect to Dunrod Road and around Immerkip. I'm just wondering, obviously it seems to be a substantial road closure with a fair bit of time to actually get it sorted. So I'm just wondering whether or not when that will become as a separate paper or included within this paper at future committee. Looking forward with respect to the Port Glasgow sculpture, I note the states have been some difficulty in supplying specialist equipment. Obviously, the sculpture's been there for a number of months there now. It's obviously gaining good publicity for the area and is well thought of generally within Port Glasgow. I'm just wondering, we haven't had a chance to have an official opening yet. We're mostly waiting for certified, so officers will be able to give a timescale on when the actual works will be complete. And that is me at the moment.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Okay, Gail, do you want to take the reserve schemes and the road?
Yes, so I'm going to ask Gordon to come in on the reserve schemes, but in relation to Dunrod Road, there is a period of time that will be required and to do the ground surveys that are required for that. We don't have a timeline on that. That will depend on availability of appropriate consultants to be able to provide that information to us. So we will progress with that, and as soon as we have an update, we'll share that with committee so that you have a note of the anticipated timeline. And in relation to the Port Glasgow sculpture, there has been some difficulty, as set out in the report, in gaining lighting equipment. So we would be looking to liaise with our colleagues in corporate communications in relation to the appropriate time to have an official opening scheduled. Gordon, could you please come in on the projects?
Yeah, thanks. Some of the projects are ready just now, Councillor Curley. So, would you like me to send it to all members for comment on? And as I say, when we've got the rest of them, most of them listed there explain exactly what's happening with them. Most of them are improvements to existing infrastructure. So I'm not entirely sure if you want to see that, like the Lady Octavia to Dunrod Road, we're just upgrading that and putting some lighting in it. I think you've already seen the one that's going on down at the Beacon that's getting constructed at the moment. The Kelburn part, we're just widening some paths in there. Container ways, just again widening the footpath again, just to make a dedicated cycle route there.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Leach. I think it'll be good. Obviously, we know there's agendas in the meeting today about cycle paths, and I think it'd be good that we actually are. Certainly, ward councillors are able to see what's going on and what's trying, so that they can actually know what schemes are being progressed and get concerns what they call raised at an earlier point, because obviously we want to be able to ensure that these schemes can progress in a quick way when they're actually going to site, and we can actually iron out any issues, any local issues that might occur.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that, Paul.
Thank you, Convener. Just a question under 3.44, just to ask if the Inverkit project is still in to go to the City Deal cabinet in the previous timescales mentioned.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor. We're currently liaising with external legal advisors that are providing guidance in relation to the legal agreement that we require with Scottish Power. When we have that in place, we'll be able to progress with the detailed design. We are preparing a detailed timeline and we'll be able to share that with committee.
Thanks, Neil. Anything else, Stuart?
Say that when you're lunch. For you, Convener. It's certainly our intention for the final business cases to be with the City Deal PMO by the April timescales as previously mentioned.
Thank you. I've got 5 points, so hopefully I can go through them fairly quickly. So 3.10, former St Ninian site. So I've just noted that we're actually now going into tender to look at the detailed inspection of the old mine shaft. So when I actually refer to Appendix 1, so there's a £25,000 line in there. I assume that that tender is the £25,000. Yes or no? And secondly, I note that the 170, which is the remaining project amount, is actually earmarked for 23-24. So is that stating that no work will be done this tax year? It's into next tax year. Do you want me to do them all at once?
There might be an idea of doing one at a time.
Okay,
So the St Ninian site mine shaft. Just taking that.
I can take that, Councillor Convener.
Sure,
Eddie
you're
will
just
come in
slow.
probably on.
Okay, Gail.
Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry. Eddie can come in relation to any of the timelines in relation to the procurement of the specialist survey if he's got any more detail. I'll stop video in case that helps. Does that help with hearing you okay?
Yeah, we can hear you
Yes.
fine.
All right, okay. And so in relation to the survey work, we're not clear exactly how long that will take, so Eddie's probably best placed. We'll need to assess that survey information and determine how that will affect the design and any requirements for specific remedial works to be carried out on the site. So in relation to that, we will not be able to determine the actual spend this financial year till that piece of work has been carried out.
Okay, Eddie.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. The survey work has been now accepted, so we're liaising with the contractor for a programme. And yes, it is the £25,000. I can call exactly the time period for that piece of work, but I can come back to you, Councillor, and confirm. And as Gail states, it depends what that exercise uncovers in terms of the condition of the shaft, because there may be some follow-on work required. So the first obvious activity is to identify the condition and understand if there's any further work, and that will obviously impact on the potential amount of funding you have left for the remaining phases of the project.
Okay, do you get that one?
Yeah, so I'd actually assume that that's the 25,000, because obviously my concern is we spend all the money on investigating and we don't actually achieve much with the balance, so that's reassuring that it's not another additional amount of 25. Right, great. So I'll combine my next two, which is 3.12, 3.13. So the Inverclyde traffic study, can someone confirm that that definitely includes Curran Drive? It's just the report just says Inverclyde traffic survey, so it doesn't actually give us details. So I assume that Curran Drive is included in that, and if that is the case, I'm kind of now looking for a firmer timescale. So at the Bureau Community Council, this came up. So this item came to the Petitions Committee in March 2020. So there's a bit of nervousness from the community around what's going to happen with Curran Drive. Is it ever going to be progressed to one-way system? So I really just sort of plead in that case we really need to kind of prioritise Current Drive. It's been through that democratic committee process, and we really need to demonstrate that that hasn't been lost and it's definitely still up there. And also just a kind of timescale on the Larkfield Road, George Road junction recommendations as well.
Gail, do you want to?
Yep, thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. The Inverclyde traffic survey does include Kern Drive, and it includes a number of neighbouring roads as agreed by this committee to reduce any risk of rat running should a one-way system be implemented. So that allows us to assess any wider impacts. There has been a delay. We've previously tried to procure this work and been unsuccessful. So we've revisited the tender exercise, revisited the scope to try and be more successful in that exercise. And this time we have actually been able to appoint a consultant, so that's positive. In relation to a timeline for that work being undertaken, I'm going to see if Gordon has any further update on that, because there has been discussion with that consultant in relation to how quickly they can move this forward.
Councillor, I'll come back to you with a timeline. I haven't got a timeline for Current Drive. There's also it includes the whole top area of Gourock. So as you'll know, there's a lot of stuff that was asked for, like Victoria Road going one way. So we've got to study that as well. So at the moment, I can't give you a time frame, but I will come back to you on that.
Okay, that's great. So I understand you can't give me a timescale. So really what I'm really looking for today is some sort of assurance that once we get those studies that Current Drive will be a priority, you know, that we understand that it's been a number of years, and you know, and there'll be a sense of priority when it finally, the results of the survey come through.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. We will bring a recommendation back to this committee to consider, and at that point, committee can consider whether this remains a priority for the council.
And the Watfield Road junction?
Thank you, convener. Sorry, I was getting a call at the same time there, which threw me a bit. In relation to Enfield Road, George Road, there are a number of schemes that have been looked at, taking into feedback the consultation results that were received. And we would look, and I'll look to Gordon on this, we would look to be bringing this back before the end of this financial year. But Gordon may be able to advise further.
I think where we left that one, Gail, was that we're going to take the 4 schemes to a public consultation. So I think that's where we've left that one. So we will be doing a public consultation. It'll probably not between now and Christmas. It'll probably be into the new year. But you're right, before the end of the financial year, we'll bring a report back.
Okay, Gail.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's what
Keep going. I'll join the next two. So 3.32 is the Waterfront Leisure Complex life cycle works. It was just, where does the pool feature in there? I was expecting to see the sort of replacement floor of the pool be in there as a kind of major project. And my last one is under Current Drive Depot. There has been various rumours in the community regarding Craig Mushet and that it's closing. So I'm just seeking assurance, and probably good to make a statement that in the meantime, when a decision is taken under the budget process, that Craig Mushet Quarry Recycling Centre is remaining open and not closing.
Eddie, do you want to come in on the waterfront floor?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, the project is being reported through the communities capital, so that's in the communities, education communities report, rather than this one. The capital allocation within this appendix is dealing with the new fire and panic alarms and the emergency lighting replacement within the waterfront.
Okay, and Craig Mushet?
I can confirm that there will be no activity change at Craig Mushet until the budget process is exhausted, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make the recommendations.
Great.
Yeah, I'm just got a message from the council McCabe sent the second up in the chamber. It's erratic. Is there anything we can do with that?
Just have to see. About the chamber. Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah, the chamber.
Right, okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the Environment Regeneration Corporate Director Improvement Plan Progress Report. Stuart.
Convener, through you, corporate director improvement plans are a key component in council's strategy plan performance management framework. The report before members is the first report for this financial year. In traffic light terms, there are a number of reds, the local housing strategy and Ocean Terminal, both of which we have explained that we're addressing. There are a number of indicators which are also worth highlighting, i.e. householder applications and planning applications under 2 months and street lighting repairs. Members will note from Appendix 1 that there has been an improvement in all of these indicators in the first quarter of 22-23. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Any questions, John?
Thank you, convener. If we just focus on the sub-action 14.2 inch green, and it mentions here that the work is commenced with the dredging in the quay, but it does state further that there has been more contaminated material than was anticipated. It's just to find out how this contaminated material is being disposed of. Is it disposed of in land or at sea?
Is that one for Eddie? Stuart?
Through you, convener, if settling ponds are considered as being on land, councillor.
That's good enough as an answer, thank you.
Okay. You're quite impressed with the answer, John?
Yes, straight to the point.
Anyone else? Don't see anything in the chat.
So,
Sorry, Chris.
yeah, just touching upon the point made that the revenue budget with respect to the planning resources. I noticed that there's obviously an area of alert with respect to the planning issues here, but I note what the Mr. Jameson says here about it's improving Q1 and Q4. But it's not quite at target, so I think part of the video asking was whether that the lack of planning resources that that's having an impact on our ability to actually undertake works. It does look like it has having a little bit of an impact, and I'm just wondering whether or not people provide some comment about how we actually get that sorted. Getting more people involved.
So you can be I just remind Councillor Curley that of course the performance of all planning applications is not just the availability of staff to process the applications. The application quality needs to be of a suitable standard for it to be processed in the first place. So there are many applications which remain invalid for a variety of different reasons, whether that be the applicant not paying the fee or the quality of information contained within the application not being the suitable standard. It would be remiss of me to suggest that the lack of staff isn't having some impact on the process, but it's not the only factor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's quite a good clarification. I've been wondering whether or not how we address this issue of the systemic from the applications we receive, because obviously we want to make sure the planning application is as efficient as possible. And we certainly want to make sure that we are, as the public organisations, are actually effectively checking other people's private people's work. So I'm just wondering how we can go around and get around to try and maybe try to improve the quality of the submissions that we get to the planning application process.
So you can do that. When we've been fully resourced in the past, Councillor Curley, we have done information sessions for local architects and engineers to allow them to understand not only what we're looking for, but the process. That's something we've not been able to do in recent times, but if we're fortunate enough to get staff, and recognising that a lack of planners is a problem across the whole of Scotland, it's something that we're more than happy to consider doing.
Okay. Okay, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5 is the annual procurement report, 21-22. David.
Purpose of this report is to provide the committee with an update in relation to procurement-related activity throughout the last financial year, whilst also seeking approval to publish it to the Scottish Government and onto the Council's website as per statutory guidance. It provides an update in relation to our spend compliance, our spend position in relation to SMEs, and the committee fair working practices and community benefits. Won't get into too much detail, but I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the key areas of the report.
Okay, thanks, David. We had a briefing from David. Are there any questions? Don't see anything.
Yeah, I think it's we did have a briefing, so a lot of questions were here at the briefing. But I think we maybe raise some of these issues again just publicly as well, just because obviously looking at the report as a public report. Looking at the page 35, 3.9, obviously it says the number of total council regulated procurements was 41, and the number of councils regulated procurements 40, which included community benefits was 1. Bill goes on to say that during that same year there were 17 community benefits delivered through the financial year. I'm just wondering, officers can officers give a statement with respect to how they are addressing that and how we can improve the throughput of community benefits in the future.
Sure. Eddie.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Convener, probably the best answer.
Get two at the same time.
Apologies,
David,
jumping the gun there.
That's okay, David, you come in.
Yep, section 3.9. So the table there highlights the performance to date. The big issue in relation to the performance to date is the thresholds that Inverclyde Council have set in relation to within that. We've taken the regulated position on this and have, as part of the new policy and the new approach, which is up next on the agenda, we'd be looking at bringing that threshold right down and trying to get community benefits, social value from contracts from 50,000 to 250,000. So that's why that performance looks particularly low. It's only as and when big contracts of higher value would come through that those would have been mandated, hence why the number is low. But the next item on the agenda has been put in place to try and rectify that and make sure we're getting as much bang for our buck as we possibly can in relation to any pounds spent via the council.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, yeah. Okay, anyone else? No, can we agree on recommendations?
Agree.
Yeah. Thank you. Item number 6 is the procurement strategy from 2022 to 2025, social value policy. David.
Thanks, Convener. Just touching on from what we discussed in the last report as part of the annual procurement report, it was agreed as part of the corporate procurement strategy that we would look at social value / community benefits and how we can best embed them in our processes to ensure that we're maximising outcomes as much as we possibly can. So this report is to give you foresight of the recommendation that we implement a new policy approach in relation to social value. And the key difference is that there's going to be a focus on providing a menu which has got a value and an outcome points-based target that would be required for every contract and mandating that, so effectively making the suppliers mandatory as part of the contract to provide social value or social value outcomes, which is obviously aligned to the delivery of that contract. So that there'll be an appendix there that details that out. But the key themes that have been identified is employability, skills and training, supply chain development and community engagement, and these have been set up in consultation with Centre Expertise, Scotland Excel, City Region and SDP and others to make sure it's relevant and proportionate to what the supply base is capable of delivering. There's a mention of the pilot in there, the social value pilot that was carried out, and I think that demonstrates the value we can bring to Inverclyde and its residents in relation to getting more outcomes, and I'm more than happy to take any questions on it.
Okay, thanks, David. Any questions from David?
Yeah, thanks very much, Convener. Welcome the report, and obviously it's fantastic to see what's happening in the direction of travel. I don't have any problem. But one of the frightening phrases I often hear in chamber is that we're going back out to tender, which says to me that the tender process has failed. Now, suppliers have a number of reasons, for either we put in an unsuccessful tender or sometimes no tenders at all, there's been nothing at all. So David used the phraseology there, relevant and proportionate. So just to push that a little further, how confident are we that these are relevant and proportionate? Because the last thing we want is to continually hear the phrase, we're going back out to tender.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think thanks, convener. Absolutely take your point on board, and that's why there was so much research done in relation to the target, the values, the points-based system that has been put in front of you today. You know, like I said, we consulted with Scotland Excel, so the supply base should already be used to it for using in their frameworks. City Region have adopted a very, very similar model. And again, we're doing a good piece of work at the moment with the supplier development programme and understanding not only what the suppliers are capable of, but we've agreed a programme within Inverclyde starting on the 30th of November that we're going to start delivering focused workshops to engage with the suppliers and to get them tender ready so that they actually understand the process of tendering, and they're going to be specific training on the back of that going into January, followed by a meet the buyer before the end of April. So there's a programme of stuff being lined up to ensure that we're giving the suppliers as much information as they possibly need and getting them tender ready as much as we can. So hopefully that would alleviate any concerns in relation to, you know, going back out to tender, because that's the worst case scenario for everyone.
Thanks, Adrian. Okay, Elizabeth.
Thanks, convener. So the question that I've got is really related to not so much the policy existing or the content of the policy, but how we actually make it work, how we enliven this. And I kind of looked to Appendix 7, the plan, the action plan, to try and help me with that. And I'm not sure I'm kind of getting exactly what we're going to do to make this a living, breathing, making a difference policy from Appendix 7. And also I'm kind of curious that everything seems to be green, which normally looks like it may well mean from your perspective that it's on track, but it kind of generally means like sort of complete from my understanding. So I'm just thinking there's things there that are in the future, so they can't be complete, and I'm not even sure if they would necessarily be deemed on track as such. So really just kind of a question about how do we, we've got this policy, we've got it written down, it's lovely, it looks great, but how do we make it actually work?
David.
Thanks, convener. Absolutely, and take your point in relation to probably not started yet, but we're on target, and the work that has been done to get us to today and to those points is well underway. Hopefully, one of the things that would give you some confidence about how we make it work is the pilot that was run for our HEAPS programme, and the outputs that actually generated and secured those deliverables as part of the new exercise. So it wasn't just a case as we're going to implement this policy code. We've done our research. We've pitched at a level that we think's right, and we've then followed that up by doing a subsequent pilot on one of the live projects with a live supplier, and we've detailed the outcome of that pilot within the report. And what will happen is that same process we've now tied in with legal, our internal stakeholders, employability, all the key stakeholders that need to be involved to make sure that we're not just talking about it, we're actually delivering on it, we're capturing them, we're monitoring them, we're implementing them, we're reporting back. So this will form part of the annual procurement report. As you can see, our numbers are relatively low. I think there's room for improvement, and we would be reporting that back to you every year through the committee to let you know what has been delivered. The approach is happening all public sector wide. This is the approach that's been taken, and there's the evolutions to come. There's next steps in relation to having portals and community wealth building, but I think what we want to do is take one small step, do it properly, get it right before we go and develop further.
You okay with that as well? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? No? Kim McGee? Okay, thank you. Item number 7 is the Employability Services Review. Jennifer, you take this for us?
Thank you, convener. This report sets out the options for consideration for the provision of employability service presented to PNR under delivery and disciplinary process. It sets out the employability landscape, including labour market statistics and how the council is currently delivering employability. Excuse me. In addition, the report sets out the savings proposals, of removing funding from the service as part of the 23 to 25 budget savings, with 3 options of do nothing, reduce employability service by removing £500,000, and then option 3 of significantly reducing the employability service by removing £900,000 from the services budget, with option 3 being the proposals put forward to the budget saving consultation. It should be noted that the options put forward would potentially have an impact on increasing the scale of the savings on external providers who are currently contracted by the service to deliver employability services. The recommendation is not to ask members to approve the budget savings in the report, but for committee to consider the options identified in section 4 and note the options will be part of the overall budget consideration. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jennifer. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me in, convener. Maybe I could remind Councillor Brooks that democratically the council decided to have hybrid meetings, so I'm perfectly entitled to attend this meeting remotely. And it obviously is important that the sound both online and in the chamber is of an audible quality. We are actually broadcasting this meeting as well, so it's important that either watching the meeting or participating. Here's everybody. This is obviously a report we'd rather not have, to be perfectly honest, convener, because it's not something the council wants to do, is cut funding for employability services. Employability services has been a key part of our social and economic strategy for a long time now, to try and ensure that local people have the right skills they need to be competitive in the jobs market. And I think the report highlights that certainly recently we're making reasonably good progress in terms of that direction of travel. So we certainly won't be cutting them services, but we are facing an extremely challenging financial situation. In fact, we're facing a financial crisis, not of our own making. We've had ongoing real terms funding cuts from the Scottish Government for many years. We've had caps and freezes in council tax for many years. And the chickens are coming home to roost in terms of that. And we've obviously had huge increases in inflation, which is affecting both the council spending power and our ability to raise income. So we're in a very, very difficult situation. I mean, it is a bit ironic that we do see other funding coming from the Scottish Government and the UK Government, to a certain extent, potentially going to substitute for our own funding. But I'd rather we had full discretion over our funding than getting funding which is given to us with conditions attached to it. So it's a difficult situation we're facing, and obviously ultimately the council will need to decide through the budget process where the cuts are going to fall and whether any will fall in employability services or to what extent they'll fall. But the question relates to, I suppose, representations that we've received this week from one of the employability partners. I won't name the organisation, but I suppose it's a fair challenge if we are going to have to make reductions in services. It's a fair challenge to say that whatever budget remains, we should make the best use of that budget. So we should be trying to achieve the maximum possible outcomes from that remaining budget to get best value. And I suppose that's the question around ultimately any savings proposals that we consider. Can officers assure us that they will be looking at both the contracted programmes that we buy in and obviously internal services to ensure that we're actually getting the best bang for our buck in supporting the people in employment. And as has been sort of pointed out by this particular contractor, there are people who are not very far from the labour market, and there are people who are very far from the labour market, and so there are different services that meet different needs, and we need to take that into account when we're looking at any potential savings. So it's just to get assurance from officers that we will be seeking whatever budget we're left with after the budget process to get the best value from whatever spending we have.
Sure.
So you can be Councillor McCabe, I'll draw your attention to the paragraphs 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4, in particular 4.3 and 4.4. Within that, they identify the reductions in the budgets that officers are presenting. You'll recognise that within employability services, as you said yourself, there are high volume interventions and there are lower volume interventions. And interventions which are set out in those paragraphs identify the split. As far as option 2 is concerned, the £191,000 part of the saving is within services which are controlled within the council. Obviously, all of the services are controlled by the council, but in terms of the delivery, that is by the council in terms of direct employees. The second saving, i.e. the option 3, and I would point out a typographical error because those of you who have done the sums will recognise that the savings only add up to £880,000 in option 3, and that's because of a typical typographical error in the last slide where it says £191,000, that should say £211,000, and that again is the saving which is against core or internal employability services. So within the proposals that officers have, it is spread amongst the internal and external organisations, and what we're looking to achieve is any one of these savings will be painful, but it's how we minimise the impact to the people of Inverclyde as a result of these savings. And I can confirm that we are looking for best value from those savings.
Okay, well, that's the.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but obviously I think there is a bit of a job of work in terms of communication also with some of our providers as well, to give them the assurance that performance value is part of as it has been and will be part of any sort of recommendations that come forward.
Okay, Stuart,
yeah, through you, Convener. I obviously can Councillor McCabe, this report is in public, and that's why the individual organisations haven't been named. I can confirm that personally spoke to one of the organisations in the last 48 hours, and that was a productive conversation.
Okay.
Thanks, Convener. Similar comments, but just in terms of the response that Stuart's given to Councillor McCabe about the 3 options that are presented in there's no word on the council. So I think I'm going to kind of put my hand up to not having had or not having felt this sort of transparency of what the whole position was, and the way it's been presented to us, it still does look very much that we're looking at our external contractors rather than ourselves, because twice, I think it's in 4. I can't see because I'm talking to you guys, but the electronic papers, I think it's 4.3 and 4.4. Twice it's saying at the bottom of that there's no impact to the council. So I'm not sure that that's been helpful in terms of sort of full transparency of the situation, given your answer to Councillor McCabe.
Sure.
Convener, I draw members' attention to paragraph 1.5, and that states that the options presented within the report do not have any impact on council employed staff, and therefore the units have not been consulted. So perhaps it's been remiss of us as officers not to point out that whilst there has been an impact on council delivered services, it's no impact on staff within the council. And I'll have to provide that clarification, Councillor Roberts.
Okay, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was just doing a thumbs up. That's fine. Yeah.
Right, okay. A blind thumbs up. Yeah, well, thanks. Okay, anyone else? Yes, from the one.
Yeah, just a minor point, probably maybe a legal question. It's just the wording, so obviously our papers for information noting. So I would expect to see that the committee note the options identified and not consider.
Sure.
Convener, we have to apologise to members because at the end of the day, this is a dog and definitely report. So the delivering differently process commenced before the budget setting process commenced, Councillor Quinn. So under normal circumstances, this report would have been for members to make a decision on, but because the budget setting process has overtaken the delivering differently report, that's why it's only for consideration as opposed to seeking a view from the committee.
Okay.
Well,
I think it's just we need to be clear that we are just noting this. We are not making any decisions or anything. I think it's important for us to, you know, as elected members, for me to say this paper is only for noting today, and I have no decisions to be made. So I would have liked it just to say note, because all we are doing today is noting it. And it's the same with the next one, which we are just noting. We are not really providing any comment or decision at this stage. We're just noting. I know it seems a minor point, but I think it is important to give.
Colin?
Thanks, Michael. I mean, it is just for noting, and Elizabeth mentions the transparency of the situation, but transparency of the situation is we're facing £15.2 million worth of cuts, and as usual, it's those most disadvantaged and poor who's going to lose out. You know, the people who the employability contract supports is people who've spent a lifetime facing structural barriers, whether it's a life of one generation or two generations who've been unemployed, sickness or whatever. In here, where again, we have a lifeline, which is the employability service we give them, which gets people ready for work mentally, physically, gives them an opportunity, and we are now going to pull the rug from beneath them again. We were talking about the employability advice service, which is going to be lose out here as well. This is an area where there's a lot of non-unionised jobs, 0 hours contracts, precarious work, and Inverclyde Employment Services represent a lot of people who are treated abysmally with employers. When this gets pulled, they're going to have nowhere to go. So it's not. I've not really got a question, but I would say I'm just wondering at what point the pen is going to drop with our colleagues across the chambers here about these cuts. You know, when are you eventually going to stand up and let yourself be heard? You're voted in to represent this community, but yet you're sitting by and you can see who this is affecting. Some of the poorest and hardest to reach, but you sit here and you say nothing again.
Mr. Strachan, Ian?
Yeah, thank you, convener. This was just on Councillor Quinn's point, maybe just to come in briefly, if it might assist what Mr. Jimison was saying. We felt if we just had it saying noting, we might be seen to be not giving the committee its place to give comments, but without prejudicing the ongoing budget process. So apologies if that perhaps confused matters or didn't maybe make it as straightforward. But just to explain, that was why we wrote it the way that we did, Councillor. That maybe assists.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay.
I think
right.
I think we've had a fair challenge from Colin, and I think it's fair to say, yes, we are taking these budget decisions very, very seriously, and we do understand the impact that these cuts, which come from a variety of sources, will have in our community. But yeah, no, this budget process is not finished. Let's see how it pans out, and I think all of us, no matter what political party or no political party, do take decisions very seriously and are considering the impact on every single member of our community.
Okay, can we agree recommendations? Yeah. Okay, item number 8 is the Community Work and Service Review. Martin?
So very similar to the previous item, convener, this is also a delivering differently report, giving potential options for the community warden service. The options are detailed in section 4 together with the impacts of the different options. 4.1 is the option to leave as is. 4.2 is effectively a 50% cut, and in that we have the details of some of the things that we wouldn't be able to deliver. And option 3 and 4.3 is the complete removal of the service. Option 3, as you'll be aware, is the option that is under consideration in the budget consultation currently. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Stephen?
Yeah, again, convener, this is a report I don't welcome, to be perfectly honest, because I wouldn't want to be cutting our community warden service. I certainly value the work that our community wardens do across Inverclyde and have done for a long number of years. And the report obviously highlights some of the important work that they do. We've seen obviously in recent days a lot of coverage over the potential impact of the Scottish Government's sort of medium-term financial strategy on the police services and fire services. Indeed, we saw a protest at the Scottish Parliament to do by the fire brigades unions, and there's obviously a lot of concern that the assumptions in that medium-term financial strategy of basically flat cash over the next four years means savage real terms cuts, particularly given where inflation is at this point in time is projected to remain for a period. So if the potential cuts to fire services and police services is going to impact on community safety, certainly any cuts to community warden services will simply add to that. So there's undoubtedly the case that our communities will be less safe if we are to cut these important services. But as has been pointed out, we are facing £15 million of potential cuts over the next couple of years. We will absolutely continue to lobby as a council, both directly and through COSLA, for a better financial settlement from both the UK and the Scottish governments. And indeed, at the last council, there was agreement for a letter to be sent to the Prime Minister and the First Minister, both around the cost of living crisis, but also around council funding as well. We've got a meeting scheduled with the local MSPs and regional MSPs and the MP in the next couple of weeks, and we will make clear to them the scale of the cuts that we're facing, and obviously try to enlist their support to see if we can get a better settlement. But there is no doubt we are facing really, really difficult times. The most difficult financial position that I've faced in over 30 years as a councillor, and this is just an example of the very, very difficult cuts that we may have to make.
Thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Paul?
Thanks, mate. It's just to come on about Councillor McCabe says there. It's also worth the Chamber noting that only yesterday Police Scotland had announced that they could be suspending the 101 service because of the amount of cuts to police officers and support staff. £11 billion worth of cuts. So, you know, we rely heavily on the police, we rely heavily on the 101 service. What are the public going to do if they can't afford 101 and can't afford the community wardens? You know, it's a hell of a situation we're facing here. Again, you know, Scottish Government cuts, you know.
No, nothing. Okay, anyone else? Do you agree with recommendations? Yeah. Okay. Number 9 is traffic calming. Gail?
Thank you, convener. This report sets out the proposed traffic calming projects for this financial year and next. It's one project, however, due to the scale of the financial position, it will be funded from 2 years' worth of funding allocation. The locations have been identified through the use of the traffic calming policy and the associated criteria contained within that. The proposed intervention has been identified by the team to reduce the speed of vehicles by changing driver behaviour and driver perception of an area. Happy to take any questions, and Gordon, as advised earlier, is on the call and he can potentially address any technical queries.
Okay, thanks, Gail. No.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Gail, and thanks for that introduction to it. There's a couple of questions in this one, and possibly a request at the end. I think for new members and perhaps older members as well, it's good to refresh us why recommendations, what this is saying is we're just actually noting, because the decision's already been taken by officers. I noticed at 3.1 in your
in your presentation there, you mentioned the 31st of August 2017 committee approval of the guidelines. Perhaps it'd be good if you can actually tell us if that's where we've seeded the recommendations over to yourselves. So therefore what we're doing here is just really rubber stamping. That would be my first question to you. I suppose my second one as well is for members to try and get a handle on, we see this now, and the only reason it's before it's now is because it's over 2 years. So what you're saying to us is if it wasn't over 2 years, we wouldn't have actually got sight of this. So it might be a good to tell us what that process actually goes through. Now, I assume that the reason this is here is because either an elected member or a community council or even a member of the public has brought it to the road's attention. We have now assessed it because of that, asked by, I'll say, an elected member, and therefore what has happened is this is the result of that chain of events. So it'd be good just to get clarity whether or not that is correct. And probably lastly, from my point of view, we've got three ward members here, myself, Graham and Elizabeth. I know I'm getting an awful lot of flack with regard to this particular item. You know, the obvious one is we're putting more roundabouts in the West End. Do we really need it? I would actually request that maybe we delay this and have a bit of thought from the roads department whether or not there are other options available rather than putting roundabouts. So I suppose that's two or three questions and a request.
Yeah.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. I'll try and address them all, but please come in if I've forgotten anything. So in relation to the traffic calming policy, that was approved by committee, and the criteria within that includes a number of different considerations that determine the list of prioritisation. So that prioritisation we then can deliver depending on the scale of each, potentially 1 or 2 a financial year of those projects. So the criteria includes elements such as, you know, what kind of route is it? You know, is it a route that is in close proximity to, say, a school? The number of vehicles using the route? Are there pedestrian crossings in the area? Are there frontages? So there's a number of different elements contained within that policy that the team will assess when they are determining what the that positioning should be. So each of the locations is referred to the road service through various approaches, and it can be through a member of the public, it can be through an on-site inspection where it's identified by a member of the team as a location that requires some, you know, assessment. It can be through our annual speed measures being carried out that flags up a concern. Could be from the police or it could be from an elected member. And then when we have that, we do then assess each site so that we can be able to determine where it should sit in that prioritisation. So this report was requested at the previous committee. Usually we put a note within our capital programme update that sets out what the location is and the progress in determining that. However, more detail was requested, and that the team have brought forward this report to be able to provide that increased level of scrutiny and detail. Each location then, the proposal will go through the traffic regulation order process. That will go through the consultation as set out within that process, and at that point both members of the public and the committee have the opportunity to make comment, either supportive or in objection to that. I'll bring in Gordon if there's anything specific that he would like to add.
Sorry, Gail, just before we go on, again, the specific point, and that is why we're just noting this, we're not approving it. So that policy takes out of elected members' hands because it is effectively an officer's, the experts about Gordon's experience here, But just to get that clarified, that's why we're not in favour and we're not approving it.
Yes, that's correct, councillor.
Gordon?
I think the only point I'll add is that Gail's right. It's been looked at by roads experts, and these measures were the ones that they thought were the best for that area. I think there's actually not many measures that you can use. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only eight sort of traffic calming measures that we can use. You use road humps, narrowing, gateways, markings, rumble strips, roundabouts. And two that were added on in the last couple of years are vehicle activated signs and raised junctions. So there's actually not many measures that we can use. So that's why the roundabouts were used, and we probably didn't use speed humps in this road because you'll understand the West End's full of straight roads in a crisscross manner. And if we put measures on one road, people will just use the next road up from it, and then we'll end up just transferring that problem. So we've tried to use softer measures this time to try and reduce the speed of the traffic.
Thanks, Gordon. Stuart, you want to come in?
Yeah, through you, convener. Members will recognise that Scotland and Wales have identified this as a technical solution. So we, as officers, we are willing to revisit the technical solution, but recognise that if it is found that this remains the best technical solution, then we will progress with the technical solution.
And obviously, my request is we do that. So hopefully the committee will agree to that. And I do recognise, and I've said many occasions, I'm not a road traffic expert. You know, I'm not. Sorry, that's it. Sorry, thanks for that, Stuart. And I have said many occasions that I'm not a road traffic expert. That's why we've got people like Gordon and Gail, and that's why we pay them the big bucks. So I would appreciate that, because there is definitely concern, and I dare say Graham and Elizabeth has been the same, that we have had many representations on this. So if they could look at it, and we need to accept, if they looked at it again, and that is a recommendation, then so be it. But I would ask that we look at it again.
Stephen, you want one?
Yeah. I suppose I'm just seeing a bit of clarity in where we're going from this. I mean, if there are concerns among the ward members about the proposals in front of them, I'm quite happy for it to be deferred to the next meeting. For discussions to take place with the ward members, but obviously at some point you need to come to a conclusion, and then it does go through the traffic regulation order process, which then does allow objections to be made and potential hearings. And as has happened in the past, the committee can basically decide not to go ahead with a scheme or ask for a scheme to be amended as well. But if there are concerns over the particular scheme as it's designed at the moment, I don't see a problem with delaying it for further discussion with the board members.
Thanks, Stephen. No, move bring Gordon in first and then bring in Gordon.
Sorry to jump in again. The actual measures that are being proposed this time don't require any traffic regulation orders. We've already been through this with legal, and because it's not measures on the road, it's not humps and bumps. We don't actually need a traffic regulation order, so that it wouldn't be going through the consultation process for the measures that is being proposed. So that's probably why the best one is just to revisit these measures.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much, convener. Yeah, I've got very similar concerns from Councillor Clougherty. Obviously, is this the right fix? And I think Councillor Clougherty, neither is a roads expert, so we're not trying to get one up on road experts, because clearly that's their job. I just wonder, I understand there is no formal application at the moment, so for planning, but the Great Academy site is in the process, I believe, of going through a formal application, and this junction is very close to it. So I just wonder, with the extra houses, if planning was to be approved, would this alter officers' opinion, or whether this is the correct site? So that's my only question. But I do welcome officers' understanding that we'll go away and think again, and if it is appropriate, then that's so be it. If not, obviously it'd be really helpful to understand the alternatives. I know that Gordon just listed them, but in the middle of a meeting, it's hard to process those alternatives. So a conversation with ward councillors is welcomed. But a question on the Greenfield Academy site. So if that is developed and X number of houses are there, does that change the calculations of the road offers?
Gordon, you want to come back to that?
I think it's something that we can look at. We'll look, as I say, we'll revisit it and look at it again. That's the best I can say.
Okay, well.
Yeah, thanks. So I've just got a quick question on the finance under 5.2. So the paper does state that the 2-year funding will come from the roads appropriately named ramp funding in this case, because the road safety fund, which was paused by the Scottish Government, but under the finance it says road safety improvement fund or roads ramp. So it's actually got as if the Scottish Government funding is a possibility. So is the council meeting the full 100k or are they just meeting the 50k?
Yeah.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. The external funding has currently been paused and we're not able to identify whether we have that level of funding available, which is why we have allocated ramp currently. There is a potential possibility that there may be some funding made available for that, and we'll update on that financial position when it's made clear to the team.
Okay, but 2.2 doesn't actually state that. 2.2 says that the 2-year funding will come from the council solely. So we might need a wee change to the wording under 2.2.
You need to amend that.
Through you, convener, will reflect on Councillor Quinn's comments, and any report that comes back to committee will address that.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. It's just in respect to this paper and what they got. The paper states that this is the top of the pile when it comes to the top priority when it comes to traffic calming. It would be good to get a sense of that, because I know there's a number of schemes, and I imagine we've all got a number of schemes in the ward. And it would be good for, if the paper's coming back, that we actually have an appendix for noting as well that lists the schemes that have been considered by officers, so that and these will come from, as has been noted in the discussion, this will come from a variety of sources. So it'd be good that we have an appendix just noting schemes and the current priority each are given. I know in my ward there's schemes that have asked to be done that are going to be reviewed in January, so that might not be part of that paper, but certainly it would be good to actually have that. So it might be something that if we get our paper for noting each year, just to advise us what schemes are progressing for that way, so that sort of tally we get, so we can see how schemes are actually progressing, or how a new scheme has come in and maybe put the scheme in your ward to the post sort of thing.
Sure.
Do that, convener.
Good. Okay, anyone else? Sorry, John.
Thank you, convener. One of the things I'd like to raise is that well, this has been marked in as the top priority. We haven't actually been given any figures or further details. We know that there are a number of generators, whether it be pedestrian numbers, whether it be schools, churches, shops, homes for pensioners and the likes. Could we have a full set of figures which gives us the scoring that is accredited to each of the areas of priority? The reason I'm asking that is that Councillor Curley had mentioned about other priority work that had been proposed for January. But if you look at 1.4, it says that if we were to proceed with this work, it would exhaust the available budget over the next 2 financial years. Would that not mean that there would be no further road coming during that period?
Sure.
Through you, convener. Absolutely. The scenario is, Councillor Crowther, there is a list of priorities as things come and go from that list, the list is updated. So as Councillor Curley said, some projects, new projects could pick the existing projects at post. So it comes down to the prioritisation that officers are giving to the individual projects based on the scoring matrix, which is contained within the policy. But it is a relatively small budget, hence the reason for us having to use 2 years worth of budget for implementation of the measures which are proposed within the report.
Yeah, on that point, you mentioned there the scoring matrix. Would it be possible for the scoring matrix to be provided to councillors?
To you, convener, the scoring matrix is contained within the policy. Happy to share with the members the policy documents, if that would be helpful, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Okay, so actually, okay, so I can see there under 3.1 the guidelines. But what I was actually saying is, could we have the actual figures?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. And agree the recommendations? Agreed. With regard to
what remains for this period of brain. So you want officers, your risk officers to report back to the next meeting of the committee. You're looking for clarification of funding points in the appendix. You're looking for a further appendix detailing options that were considered but not taken forward, and to allow further officer discussion with board of 4 members.
Yeah. Agree that?
Yes. Sorry, that wasn't bad for Casasma. Sorry.
Probably approximately what I asked for, but it really should listen. A list of close. I think it would cover it, but I think just for to clarify what you said, just a list of the projects that we considered and
Convener,
sure.
I'm certainly struggling to hear that chit chat going on in the chamber and what was getting agreed there. But I have to say, I think we're trying to take advantage of the fact that there was a bit of doubt on the minds of the ward members looking to try and revisit the decision. We don't normally ask officers to provide us with a whole list of the schemes that are considered. We trust officers are using the policy and applying it appropriately and coming up with the schemes that are the highest priority. If we want to have more road safety schemes done in Inverclyde across the next few years, we have to say then put extra money into the budget for road safety. So I just think the discussion has grown arms and legs a wee bit. I know Councillor Cullen's like me would like to have this money spent in our own ward, but the reality is if the highest priority is this particular area, then we should focus on this scheme and then look at other schemes when we're prepared to put other funding up.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Just
Right.
I think I quite agree. I would say that it would be very. I think it is useful to see these schemes, because then it gives us as councillors for noting, then we can actually see then when there's a lot of schemes, and we can then make a decision that's whether we're going to put more money in to dealing with that. So I think it provides transparency both to us and the general public, but where our priorities maybe need to be adjusted.
So, but you can just get some data. Are we getting into the realms of a vote on this, or are you content with the discussion now?
I genuinely didn't actually hear exactly what you put forward as the proposed decision,
okay,
Peter. So I didn't hear that, but I did hear that not necessarily everybody was agreeing with what you put forward.
Just put it, if you want to just wait to see.
So my understanding from the committee was that you're looking for it to be remitted to officers to bring this report back to the next meeting with clarification of the funding point that was raised by Councillor Quinn, and an appendix as raised by Councillor Curley, but purely for noting to show projects considered and their respective scores, and to allow further discussion with the Ward 4 members.
If others are content with that, I'm content with that.
Okay, agree?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks. Okay, item number 2 is the standardisation of parking in Inverclyde, the consultation findings. Gail.
Thank you, convener. This report sets out the consultation feedback from the recent public consultation exercise in relation to formalisation of parking restrictions both on street and off street. There was a number of questions asked, and the findings of that are contained within the report. And the feedback was that in relation to both off-street proposals and on-street proposals, that the public did not support the proposed proposal that officers made and to allow that formalisation of parking, and the feedback was to retain the current restrictions. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Gail. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, convener. It was a laudable ambition of Councillor Curley's to have a uniform system across the area. I wasn't personally convinced that that was going to meet with overall favour from the public, and certainly in part of my ward in Kilmacombe, it certainly hasn't met favour. I have no difficulty in terms of the recommendations. I just don't think the report is explicit in the reason for the recommendation. I think Gail has, I suppose, added to what's in the report in terms of our remarks, but I'm presuming that the key reason for sticking with what we've got, which to some extent has moved a bit since the consultation started, is that the ambition to have a uniform system isn't sort of universally welcomed by the public.
Bill?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, convener. Yes, in relation to the agree, disagree type percentages, in both on street and off street, the disagree was greater than the agree, which is why the officers have made that recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, thanks. I suppose this is another one that is certainly not of officers making. It's been the people around these tables that have got us into this position with various bits and pieces throughout Inverclyde. Stephen's mentioned Kilmacombe, which is a prime example of wardens need to take photographs of where the tyre nozzle is to ensure that they're not staying there for over a period of time. Can I just support the officers' violent efforts, efforts in trying to bring this to us? And always I would say is thanks very much for your efforts in this. It's not going unnoticed, but unfortunately it's been too hard a nut to crack.
Yeah.
I suppose a better comment is to be name dropped a couple of times. I think valiantly, what do you call it, efforts, if I can get the word out. I think basically, yes, I think we've had discussions in the past where we've been cherry picking bits and pieces and adjusted things around the car parks, and this was an effort. I don't know if I was the only one to suggest, but certainly I believe that we should, as a general rule, try to standardise as much car parking so people know what they're going to do and what they pay. Unfortunately, as Mr. Porter says, it does seem to be a bigger nut to crack than we're able to at this precise moment in time, whether or not there's that's the scope in the future. But I think there's maybe a wee bit of the baby being chucked out of the dishwater here as well, because I did say dishwater, it'd be a bit unfortunate, wouldn't it? I'm washing them in the sink, so let's get to that stage now, perhaps. But what we need to look at is what was disappointing here as we do to this is the fact that we're not given the opportunity to try and get some free parking in the green town centre. I think that was looking at how it's been developed within the main towns. We've got Greenup has got a lot of car parks where we always have to pay for car parks, whereas Europe from Glasgow there's certain free parking for 3 hours. So it's unfortunate that's not able to be progressed. I'm just going to make a case and plea to officers: is there, if you were to try and reduce parking charges or change the parking charges that are already existing within car parks in Europe, is that something that would require a road order consultation, or is that something that could be done as part of the general charging principle? So if you've got a car park that's charged for 2 hours all day, could you change that between 2 hours, 3 if you want to do it? And I'm not saying about making this decision now, I'm just saying that in the future, if it's something we'll decide as part of the budget consultation or things like that.
I think that's been a bit unfair on officers, Chris, to be honest. I think that's been yeah. Sure, you got a comment?
Through you, Convener, I defer to Gail in respect of whether we would need some kind of order in terms of changing the charging rates, but I'd remind members that at the moment there's a proposal to increase the charging in town centre car parks from £2 to £3 as part of the budget setting process. And if, I suppose, Councillor Curley is proposing that we reduce car parking charges, then that would obviously have a significant result in the budget process. But Gail, do we need an order?
It's dependent on what the proposal is. So if you're changing it quite a different approach to charging, so the 2 hour free and then a graduated, that may require an order. If you're changing from 2 to 3, it's a notification process, which is slightly different, which means that we advertise that there's a change in charge rather than requiring a full order. So we would need to look into the detail to sort of confirm exactly whether we needed an order or not.
No, okay. I'm content with that. I'm not trying to, what you call it, hijack and bring in, what you call it, changes in here. I think it's just unfortunate we're not able, as part of this process, to bring in free parking into the centre.
Right, okay, can we agree recommendations?
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry, the blind spot this week as well. Just a point of clarification. I think I know the answer, but I think it's worth clarifying. So the Gourock parking zones on here, it says current restrictions was the restrictions at the time of the survey, and that the new changes to the lower Kentbrook Street car park will still remain. Yes, that's without the answer. That's what you're checking. Yeah. Right, great, thank you.
Okay, can we agree? Yeah, thank you. Item number 11 is the Auchenbothy Quiet Ways cycle route. Neil.
Thank you, Convener. This report sets out the proposal to realign the NCN 75 along Auchenbothy Road. There has been a public consultation carried out, and the results of that and some of the feedback received are contained within the report for information. A 20 mph zone is proposed, and the extent of that is set out in 3.6, so it includes some neighbouring roads as well. And a speed order will be required to be promoted to allow that to happen. There are traffic calming measures proposed also, and these are also advised within the report and would require a traffic regulation order. Happy to take any questions, and Gordon is available as advised for any technical feedback.
Okay, thanks for that. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. This obviously affects my ward and the neighbouring ward, Ward 2 as well. So I note in 3.7 that in terms of the responses to the consultation, 57.5% of responses were against and 42.5% were in favour. It would be useful to get a handle on the numbers of people who responded to the consultation. Now, I know in the previous item, officer's recommendation is influenced by the responses they got to the consultation. And in terms of this, I suppose you could argue, well, there's more people against the proposals, but we're still in favour of the officer still recommending going ahead. I'm not going to oppose going ahead with it. I think there are certain aspects of the scheme that I certainly welcome, particularly the introduction of 20 mph. But I'm interested to hear if there are going to be any maintained objections. So obviously, if we go through that process, we'll see what those. If there are maintained objections, but it would be useful at this point just to get an understanding of how many people actually responded to the consultation rather than just the percentages.
Gail, you've got that information?
I don't have it to hand. I'm not sure if Gordon has that. I know there was a number of public events we had, and we took on the feedback in relation to some of the concerns or also support that was identified at that. We'll be happy to share that after the meeting if that was.
Yeah, that would be helpful. As I said, I anecdotally I've picked up people who are not that keen in the proposals. And obviously the report details the sort of reasons that you're getting there. So I wouldn't be surprised there might be some maintained objections. If they are, obviously there can be a more detailed discussion around it. But in terms of the principles, I'm comfortable with it going to the next stage.
Okay. Gordon, you want to come in?
I will try and find how many people responded. I can tell you I was at the public consultations and it wasn't well attended at all. I think I had 3 in one night and 2 in another. They were I think one was for, 2 was against. So the numbers weren't great. I'll try and find out while we go on how many there was, but there wasn't many.
So 66%.
Okay,
Right, okay, Gordon. Okay, anything else, Chris?
Yeah, just to say, I think it's I note that the actual the responses to the consultation, but looking at the responses, it would be having numbers today, but I reckon looking at my looking at it, this is probably maybe about 16 responses, possibly going by the depending the rounding and the percentages. But looking at the responses against are very generic, and it could be responses that are made for any sort of traffic calming. So I think looking at anything specific about this one, there's one that actually said really we should want traffic. One of the responses against is really wanting to have more traffic calming on another road. So really, it's the difference to say from it. I think generally it's something we need to try and progress forward. Look to try and see if we become 20 mile per hour speed limits within our housing estates and making them suitable for active travel, which is really for this particular one is quite key because it's right on our only real dedicated cycle route within Inverclyde at this precise moment in time. So I'm in favour for this. I think we should go ahead despite the limited appetite both for and against it we've seen from the consultation process, but maybe that's telling you something that in actual fact that most people are content with the proposals.
Sorry, Gordon.
Yeah, sorry, 88 responses.
Well,
not bad.
Yep. Okay, thanks for that. Can we agree?
Okay.
Sorry, man. Yeah. And I must have I've got my blind spot here, sorry.
No, a fellow independent councillor asked me to raise a point under 2.2. He said it should be Montrose Avenue and not Marlock Avenue.
Well, I'll ask what councillors to confirm that.
Yeah.
Is it Marlock? No, I'm just passing on it. No, shoot the messenger.
Should it be Marlock Avenue or Montrose?
Oh, it should be that one. Montrose, yes, right there.
From Montrose Avenue to Auchenbulty Road.
So is that a typo?
So it's Montrose and not Marlock. Marlock's over here.
Gordon, can you confirm that?
2 seconds when I look at the map, I will, yes.
You've put those lovely coloured dots over the actual names of the streets. No problem.
So sorry, yes, it was Montrose.
Okay.
Prophecy right, it's always right. It's always right.
Yeah, okay, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, item 12 is the spaces for people update after 1 year. Gail?
Convener. Members will recall that committee requested further monitoring to be carried out, and so the report sets out that further monitoring exercise. It's considered the number of cyclists using the route, and that's set out in item 3.6. And in respect to the impact on queuing and congestion at key junctions, that has also been monitored, and that's set out in 3.8, and it can be identified that it's continued to decrease in any kind of impact on roads using the carriageway. So to reflect the continued use of the lane and the queuing information that's provided in the report, it's proposed to retain the cycle lane and undertake improvement works funded by external funding sources. This will allow the council to align to supporting and encouraging a move to more sustainable and active travel, improving health and reflecting local and national aims and outcomes. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Gail. Any questions for Gail? Yeah.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks, convener. Obviously, I have got concerns as I reflect my constituents who contact me with regards to the viability of the temporary cycle lane on the A77 road. Just to clarify, any press reports that have been printed by local press, that my challenge is to remove the infrastructure on the A77 road for the cycle lane as opposed to moving the cycle lane. So it's the cycle lane is in the wrong place as it's on the carriageway as opposed to the cycle lane is wrong. Just to clarify that. A recent survey was carried out as part of the local government election where constituents of the area were posted a survey. That survey material is owned by the political party and not by the council. It's under GDPR. I'll be careful, obviously, the data that I share. But the results of the data said that 68.4% of those people who responded wanted the temporary cycle lane to be removed, 18.4% keep the temporary cycle lane, and 13.2% said that they were unsure. So that's the foundation for my challenge to officers. But nevertheless, I do respect officers that there is a hierarchical structure from both the UK and the Scottish Government for spaces for people, for better cycle lanes, for health, etc. And I get that. So I get that officers are responding to even legislation of what direction from governments that cycle lanes, etc., spaces for people are a positive. And we also understand Sir Strand have thrown lots of taxpayers' money at it, whether it's obviously this cycle lane or other interventions that Inverclyde Council are bidding for. Nevertheless, we have the Fraser-Valley Institute report that says that infrastructure or good road networks in this context is crucial to the regeneration. And when constituents and people from outside the area, especially North Ayrshire, are saying that the temporary cycle lane, as just now, the temporary cycle lane does interfere with the road network and it makes it harder to travel through on the A770, then that would then challenge that the opinion of the constituent is slightly different from the officers, although they may come from a different perspective. So my challenge is that the recommendation at 2.2 is not fair on constituents who live and work in Inverclyde, and I would also make a motion to change that. But I would also have a question for officers as well, that constituents are asking about the bus stop. It's 6130310, or better known as on the south side of Elm Street next to St Mary's Church. I'm not sure officers know all the numbers of the bus stops. So that bus stop has been closed while the temporary cycle lane is in position, and it's inconvenient for seniors, especially for senior or elderly constituents, to have to walk to different bus stops to catch the bus to Gourock. We all want to catch the bus to Gourock with your good coffee shops, public shops. So if this temporary cycle lane was to be made permanent, could I have clarification on what would happen to the bus stop as I've identified, 6130310? But, convener, I would like to make a motion that in 2.2 of our recommendations, that it's recommended that committee removes the temporary cycle lane structure on the A770 and ask officers to complete the removal by the 31st of January 2023.
That's it. Okay. Gail, do you want to come in on the bus stop and the impact that the cycling's had on that, first of all?
Thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. I think I would ask Gordon if he is aware of that. But in principle, we would look to be supporting the use of sustainable transport as well as active travel. So we would work closely with our partners in SPT to look at providing the appropriate infrastructure to support the use of bus transport as well as cycling and walking. But I'll ask Gordon to come in on that specific detail.
Yeah, so Councillor Brooks, I think the bus stop's been moved to outside the Riley Snooker Club at the moment, and it's still within 400 metres range of the next stop, which is the range that SPT say that it's got to be within 400 metres. So the bus stop is still within range. So if it was made permanent, it's having no effect on the local community.
Okay, Chris, that's it. Could that bus stop then be removed should my motion fail? Because obviously a bus stop constantly saying out of use is actually indicative to most people who choose to use buses.
Gordon?
Sorry, yes, the bus stop would be moved permanently to just further along the road, yes.
Okay. Stephen, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, convener. I thought people would be rushing to get in on this particular one since it's been a subject of much debate for some time now. I picked up my Green Telegraph today, convener, and I thought Extinction Rebellion had hit town, but no, it was Councillor Brooks doing a sit-down protest on the cycle track, and he's obviously trying to milk this. This particular issue for political advantage for quite some time now. I'm not so sure that the results of the last local elections necessarily are a good indicator of the strength of opposition in Ward 40 with this particular proposal. It's been a contentious scheme. There's no doubt about it, and the reality is that there's contentious schemes all over Scotland when it comes to trying to introduce cycle lanes and when it starts to affect other road users, in particular people who drive vehicles. The reality, if we're going to make cultural change that gives greater sort of prominence and to cycles over cars, there are going to be difficult decisions that you can't introduce and make that cultural change without there being an impact on car users and drivers of other vehicles. So it's a painful experience making that change. I just think we've got to bite the bullet. I think the reality is that we've had this temporary route for quite some time, and clearly it's not ideal, the temporary nature of the route. And if we are going to make it permanent, we do need to make the investment in it. I was interested in Councillor Brooks's comments where he's suggesting he wasn't against cycle routes, he was just against this particular cycle route. So I'm assuming, it wasn't part of his motion, but I'm assuming that he would want officers to be looking at an alternative to this particular route, and therefore he wouldn't be saying let's not spend any money on the cycle route, but let's look for an alternative to this particular location. But I'm minded to support the recommendations in the report, but I'm happy to hear the comments of other elected members before we come to a vote.
Yeah, I think people are using this, and I suppose I was letting other people have a great state of comments, because I think it's important, as Councillor McCabe says, that we are in the middle of a climate emergency. We do have a situation where we have to completely relook at how we move around the world, and not only the world, but our, let's call it our region and our town. So these are the things we have to do. So you can't just say, yes, we want to cut emissions, we want to do this, we want to stop our reliance on carbon and the reliance on coal and cars and other transport. And then it comes to the first time we're taking a bit of road space, not actually reducing any lanes, but taking a bit of road space from a carriageway, that we're looking at removing it because of what we call the impact. I think we do need to look at it seriously. Moving cars over a couple of metres doesn't cost us there, but not doing it might do. And we really do need to make these micro decisions on how we improve our environment in our streets, so that we can all little things add up, getting the big change we want to keep us below 1.5 degrees, which is getting more and more difficult every year. So this is the thing to do. As a community, we need to take our part to do this sort of stuff. And on top of the environmental benefits, there's benefits to what we call to people's pockets. Effective cycling and general travel is one of the most efficient, very efficient what we call way of getting around, especially in small areas. So we have to look at this. So I would say yes. Let's go on with it. Let's do it. Let's improve it. It definitely needs to be improved. It's a temporary measure. We need to look how it impacts on the bus stops, as Councillor Brooks says. I think we need to have much better solutions to dealing with bus stops. And if we do these things and improve them, we'll actually get a situation where we can encourage more people to actually cycle. This is the first stage in that process, and we really shouldn't stop at the first stage. So it would be easy for for me as a politician with the looking at what the public opinion is, or say being this and say, well, yeah, let's get rid of it. But I think taking the long-term view, we really need to start making a decision to go forward with these things and improve them. And maybe if we don't have councillors, what they call holding their arms on top of cycle lanes, and maybe sitting on cycle lanes might get more people actually using them. So same goes. And one of my colleagues reminded me the other day there, I wonder what Norman Tevitt would feel about this as well. So we said people should get on their bike, going out and do things. So yes, I'm sure we should all move on and let's move on and get this part of it moving. And with the crisis we have now, what they call on with respect to the issues we're all going to face with travelling, with even cost of petrol and electricity for those that have electric cars. Really, we want to try and make things as cheap as possible for people to move around town, and this is part of that process.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Elizabeth, and then Jim. Elizabeth.
Thanks, convener. I'm also quite keen for us to move forward from a temporary situation to a permanent situation, and I'm broadly supportive of the recommendations in the paper. I do, however, think there's one piece of learning that we said we were going to build in from the experience of putting in the temporary measures that I don't know that we've necessarily closed off in terms of what's presented. I like the list. It's in 4.3 that articulates and iterates the things that we want to change. But I'd like to see what that's going to look like. And I think that was one of the issues when the temporary measures were put in place was the agreement was made to do it, but actually what we didn't know what it was going to look like until it was done. And I think when we had briefings and discussions at that time, we kind of said, yeah, that was maybe an error. Now I'm going to ask for advice here. I don't know if that needs an additional recommendation or whatever put in, or I just don't want, if people agree with me on this point, then
We're losing you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, we're losing the audio.
Your lips are moving.
So Gail, I think from that, Elizabeth's looking for something we can actually look at and agree on how it's going to look.
Do you want me to come in?
Yeah, Gail.
Yep. Thank you, Convener. Yes, I would be happy for us to do a briefing session and set out what those interventions actually look like. So what the improvements will make the cycle lane look like. And Gordon and I will take that offline, have a chat about how best to do that and set it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so Graham, sorry, Jim.
Yeah, thanks. I do think it's important, Graham's and thanks for Elizabeth for an intervention as well. Obviously, I've spoke to Francesca, the other Ward 4 member regarding this, and we are supportive of this. There's no doubt about it. At the start, we had a lot of complaints at the start, and there was problems at the start. But when we approached officers with these problems, Stuart included, and the rest of our officers, they speedily tried to rectify these problems. Whether it was down at the Battery Park, at Elton Street, whether it was at Patrick Street and the lights at Patrick Street, they did their best to try and alleviate the problems at these areas, and they did that successfully. I think just now we're at the winter period. I think in the summertime this will be looked at as a good asset for Inverclyde, and I think it would be crazy. The whole idea, and I know Chris agrees with this idea, the whole idea that at one point we'll be able to cycle from sunny Gourock to wet Port Glasgow is something that we all look forward to. And I think we've got to actually put our colours in the mask about this and say this is something that we support. And I get people against it, but I also get people for it as well. We should remember, forget that there's people for this as well. So I would agree wholeheartedly with the recommendations. I hear what Elizabeth says, and hopefully we get a briefing where we can get the details and that a bit more as well. So And I know Francesca's Robert's been.
Elizabeth, you quite happy with that, with the briefing? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a practical measure to make sure that it's not lost. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so again, you want to clarify your motion? Oh, sorry, one.
No, it's fine. I'll be quick, honest. So yeah, so the improvements to make it permanent, will they go through a road traffic order then? It's just there's a mention of the word order. So will that go out to public consultation and we'll have a normal process then in terms of what it looks like and having the public comment on that prior to it being implemented? And also, so the costs, I think it's key because a lot of the criticism that's been wearing, in social media is about at times when we're facing budget cuts that we're spending all this money on cycle lanes. So I think it's important to recognise that that money is coming from external funding and not within the council. So I just want to clarify that the total cost, apart from the 10,000 and the 1,000 ongoing per annum, is coming from an external source, because I just think under 4.4 it said we'll continue dialogue, so I'm just a wee bit nervous about that, so I just want that confirmation. Thanks.
Gail, can you offer some clarification on both points, the public consultation and the costs?
Yes, convener, and thank you, councillor. In relation to the traffic regulation order, that is to redesignate the road to a cycle lane. So it does require to go through an order. So there will be the opportunity for people to raise objection to that, and it will run through the usual legal process. In relation to the external funding, with Cycling Walker Safer Routes, we're allocated that funding. We're able to designate that as long as it fulfills the criteria of the funding that we're provided. So that is, we'll be able to fund that, and that's why there's a Cycling Walker Safer Routes or Sustrans, because we'll be looking to engage with Sustrans and be able to hopefully be awarded funding from Sustrans, but if not, we do have Cycling Walker Safer Routes that we can use. So there is external funding to support the delivery of these improvement works.
Thanks.
Okay. You want to just qualify your...
Yeah, thanks very much for allowing me back in. Also, I'm reading the room or the chamber or maybe see. So just I wouldn't delay, but obviously I was able to cycle from Gower to Kilmacombe under Urban Temperance Day. I did it on the road, I did it safely, and I'm here to tell the tale. I didn't need thousands of pounds of infrastructure on the carriageway to allow me to cycle from Gower to Kilmacombe. And also we have a number of climate scientists who obviously challenge that we have changing climate. Of course I can see we have changing climate. I agree we have changing climate, but to say it's black and white is maybe not the best argument for spending thousands of pounds on a temporary cycle lane. But reading the room, I look forward to the vote.
Okay, you want to take to the vote?
No, Michael, I'll make the amendment to recommendations and a briefing that's been discussed.
I think Councillor McKay indicated a motion in the first instance that he would. I'd like to decide that.
No, it's a bit. He said he would wait.
And you're looking for an additional point about members briefings, that's the name, including on decisions.
Just to confirm, I'm happy for Councillor Curley to move the recommendation. I know he's a passionate cyclist, and having listened to the debate, I'm prepared to support Councillor Curley's amendment.
Okay.
And so, and just to clarify with Gail and our Gordon, I'm assuming if 2.2 falls, you wouldn't need 2.3 or 2.4. I read the report wrong.
Apologies, I couldn't hear that very clearly. Could you repeat, please?
If 2.2 was to fall, so if 2.2 came out and the remit was for officers to remove the infrastructure, would you then still need 2.3 and 2.4?
Yeah. Yes, because if the route is not made permanent, we won't need to do the redesignation of the road and cycleway, and we would not be required to allocate external funding to improve the route. However, we would need funding to remove the route if that was the decision of committee.
Okay, right. So if I can clarify then, member briefing you've offered for the design. Yeah. Okay. So Councillor Brooks' motion is that 2.1 is per the recommendations, and 2.2 be changed to the remitted officers to remove all the temporary recycling infrastructure from the A770 and that by 31st of January 2023. And the 2.3 and 2.4 therefore not be approved. And the amendment from Councillor Curley is that the recommendations are as per the report, subject to the addition of that there will be a members briefing provided in respect of the design of.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can do a vote by roll call. So Councillor Armstrong for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Brooks for motion or amendment.
Motion.
Councillor Cassidy for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Clougherty for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Crowther for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Curley for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Jackson for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor McCabe for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor McCormick for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
Councillor Quinn for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
And Councillor Robertson for motion or amendment.
Amendment.
And my maths, that'll be 10 for the amendment and 1 for the motion, so there will be
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Okay. Moving on, item number 13 is the governance of external organisations. Jennifer, can you take us through this?
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with an annual update in respect to the governance of external organisations. I must highlight and apologise that the report should have included 5 external organisations rather than the 4 stated in the report. An additional paragraph is required to be added after 3.5 for enable. This paragraph will read: enable provide contracted employability services under contract with the council. Regular monitoring meetings take place with payment subject to validated invoice. Regular board meetings take place. This will then mean that the recommendation is that the committee is asked to note that there are sufficient control measures in place in respect of the 5 organisations identified within the report. Happy to take any questions.
Stephen?
Yeah, I'm not in particular in terms of the report. I'm reassured, obviously, that the appropriate systems are in place. But with regard to Riverside Inverclyde and Riverside Inverclyde Property Holdings Limited, I do think it would be useful for the committee to get a more detailed report on the work of Riverside Inverclyde and the Property Holdings Company. We used to get sort of regular reports, annual reports certainly at least. So it would be useful for us to get that report, just updating us on the work that Riverside Inverclyde is continuing to do in Inverclyde. So I'd request that, Convener.
Okay. Stuart, you want to come in?
Right back in June.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Convener. So I'm looking at this report and I'm going, all it's really telling me is that there have been governance meetings. It's not really telling me what or that there's governance there, but it's not really telling me what the governance is telling us, if you know what I mean. So I'm not getting any sense of the health of our relationship with these organisations or our expectations of these organisations from the report that's there. I'm thinking about the equivalent report that we get through the Social Work Scrutiny Panel, that's a sort of governance report that almost says for the commissioned organisations that we work with here are, you know, they're doing okay, they're not doing so well, whatever. And I'm still quite new to this committee, so forgive me if there's another mechanism for this, but I'm just thinking if that's a governance report, then I'm not sure it's telling me much about the governance other than that it is there. It's not allowing me to assess the health.
Sure.
So you can Councillor Robertson, the purpose of this is simply to identify that there are appropriate governance measures in place for the respective organisations. It's not about performance, it's not about the relationship, it's simply to confirm that there are appropriate structures in place for the organisations, that the boards continue to meet regularly, and that's the purpose of the report.
Elizabeth, you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know, did we question that? Were we not sure about that? I'm not sure why. I'm just, again, I'm questioning why the report is there then, really.
Sure.
So you can be as part of financial regulations that on an annual basis, the host committee receives an update report on the governance of the organisations that on that particular list of those organisations which consider to require reporting on.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah, just a function of me being new to the committee and being completely ignorant of things. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone else, Chris?
I suppose just following on from Elizabeth's point there, just move officers can maybe eliminate where the performance of these organisations would be captured and dealt with.
Sure.
You can, the four, if we include enable, are all part of the employability contract, and that is where the committee are made aware of the performance of the organisations. And as we've agreed, following Councillor McCabe's request, the activities of Riverside and Inverclyde will be brought before the committee as part of our regular update.
Okay. When you want I just asked.
Yeah, I just put in the chat if I could go back in. It does really follow on from Councillor Robertson's comment or observation. So I'm presuming that officers, if they had any concerns around the governance of any of these organisations, would bring a report, potentially a private report, I have to say, to us, to make us aware of any governance issues. So I'm concluding on the basis of this report that there are no concerns at this time around the governance of the organisations.
Yeah, so
you can confirm that this time there are no concerns about the governance of these organisations.
okay. Okay, can we agree? Recommendations? Yeah, thank you. Okay, items 14 through to 19 are routine decisions and items for noting as part of the new format of the agenda. So I'll just go through them one by one if anybody's got any questions, but as I said, they're for noting. The fireworks and pyrotechnic articles, Scotland Act 2022, delegation of powers to officers. Any questions on that? Chris?
Yes, just I think it says what decision is the third one.
Decision. All right, okay.
I think just on this one, I think I do welcome this. I'm also conscious of the fact we're in the middle of sort of bonfire season at the moment. The fireworks going off all the time. I'm just wondering if officers would be able to advise when they think that we would be able to possibly consult on the aspects of this act that will be delegated to us as a council.
Martin.
I'm happy to come in on that. This is really a kind of housekeeping report, convener. Effectively, until such time as there are regulations commencing the parts of the Act that we will enforce, there isn't anything to see. So we await the regulations, which will give us detail of how we can progress in things like the control zones. So that won't be in. We can't do that at present because the enabling regulations haven't been produced.
Okay, like this.
Just a follow up, do we have an idea of the timescale of the regulations?
We don't. No, we don't. There were regulations giving the police some additional powers that came out last month, but we are not aware of the timetable for the commencement of the rest of the Act.
Okay. Graham.
I'm assuming sorry, 3.3 is a phrase submitted to the appropriate committee of the council, and because this is before us, I'm assuming this is the appropriate committee of the council. That is, this wasn't named, that is clarified. So will this be the appropriate committee of the council?
Martin.
I think that's maybe open for discussion because it might fall under the purvey of the police and fire scrutiny. I don't know if Ian Strachan has any thoughts on that.
Ian?
Aye, sorry, I was just trying to get myself off mute. No, I mean, in terms of substantive decision making around this issue and those regulations, from my perspective, that would be within the remit of this committee.
Okay. Can we agree the recommendation? Yeah. Okay, item 15 is Greater Renfrewshire and Inverclyde Leader Community-led Local Development Update. Any questions on that, Jim?
It's just a comment, although we've got these under the routine positions item for noting, when you actually go in the paper, they are marked up for decision and not for noting. So it's for members, I totally agree with yourself, convener. In essence, you'd be doing any questions and moving these on, but they are marked for decision purposes.
Peter?
So the intention is that, so we do that comment in there, so it's routine decisions and items for those that, right, so it's routine decision, it could be self-E.
No,
Okay, Graham.
Yeah, thank you very much. It happens report, but just interesting to have a comment from others. So recommendation 2.2 item C agrees that Registered Council continues to be lead partner. So the Registered Council lead partner in lots of things that we're involved in. Registered Joint Evaluation Board, we've got a deputy chair in the chamber today, and Registered Council are sometimes running roughshod over our the deputy chairman of, for example, Registered Joint Evaluation Board. And Inverclyde seems to be knocked to the ground on many occasions by Registered Council. And I realise it's a public meeting, but I really feel strongly that Registered Council sometimes don't give us the due respect that we should. And yet again, I'm reading another report that they're going to be the lead partners. So can I get some assurance that we will understand, other than the lead partners, it is a partnership and will be fully consulted and appropriate decisions will be made by both local authorities?
Sure.
And I can assure Councillor Brooks that we do take Renfrewshire Council to task, and it is the appropriate intervention in this case.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Gilby. I thought a war was going to break out there with Renfrewshire, but hopefully we'll into peace talks and we'll resolve these outstanding issues. It was just around this particular scheme and its precursor, the leader scheme. I note in paragraph 3.5 that we had a number of projects which were previously funded. It would be useful, I'm not going to ask Jennifer now to provide, but it would be useful maybe to send us separately just the details of those projects that were funded and going forward. There isn't a huge amount of money. Potentially it will obviously continue on, but it's just to ask Jennifer how we are going to engage with our local rural communities to ensure that we've got good ideas that are going to be in the mix when it comes to funding.
Thank you through you, convener. We have got several projects that we are funded through LEADER, and I'm happy to provide a note on that. And we also have the evaluation of the LEADER programme through ECO, so I'm happy to send that on as well with that for further information. In terms of how we engage, at the moment, officers behind the scenes are compiling lists of who the key players are and who the key groups that the consultant should be contacting. Through our business gateway services, through our business development teams, employability, and also with wider colleagues across the council. So we are identifying those, and we'll make sure that they are adequately consulted to ensure that the LAG is a full representation for Inverclyde.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Can we agree recommendations?
Oh, again.
One.
Yeah, thanks. Just probably a minor point. Just as someone who's actually applied to leader funding, the process was torturous. So it's really just to put it out there as ourselves as Inverclyde having a look at what that process now looks like and if it could be somehow streamlined, because you know, you would need to be an accountant, lawyer, and all these things to actually get through that process. It was so difficult. So I wouldn't want some projects failing just purely because they can't actually go through the process effectively.
Sure.
You convener. Unfortunately, Councillor Quinn, LEADER was a European programme, and the governments associated with it was associated with European standards. The new programme is a Scottish Government programme, and clearly that's something that we will feed back to officers in due course.
Okay.
But recognising that it's not a programme we're designing on our own with Renfrewshire, it's a national programme.
Great, thanks.
Okay, can we agree? Yeah. Okay, item number 16 is the annual assurance statement. We've been asked to approve. Any questions on that? Can we agree? Item 17 is the nature restoration fund. Any questions on that, Jim?
Sorry, can you just say, you don't have any connectivity issues?
Okay. And everybody still here is okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Steve's probably in Stephen.
Stephen, can you still hear us? Stephen, can you still hear us? You're on mute.
Yes, I can hear you, convener.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Jim.
No, it was just a comment, Convener, just to say that this is actually a good news story.
Yeah.
You know, it's just for yourself. I think the officers have done again a good job here, and it's just to highlight, given our earlier comments around the table, I think this is one of the good news stories we've got on our agenda today. So it's certainly one of the ones I welcome in any of the actions in my own ward, but also throughout our play. And should be welcomed as well. It fits in very much with the, our council net zero action plan. So I think this is welcome.
Yeah.
Is that?
Something.
Okay, Chris?
Okay. No, I fall asleep there instead. I thought it must be jumping my head like
I'm not.
That's falling asleep. You're. Hey, Chris.
No, so we're in like number 17. Sorry,
Yeah,
we're
but 17,
going
yeah.
straight through 16.
I'm glad it woke you up, Chris.
We're just going to.
I don't want you to miss this.
Oh yeah, I think it's great. It's brilliant, and I think our MP was very keen on this at the start. It's great to see it coming through. Obviously, it's a stamp of 10. What highlights there's a lot more benefit and but also a lot more cost. So it'd be good to see it get this through, and then look to see what else we can do to try and further the agenda for getting this down to net zero in everything.
Okay, anyone else? No, can we agree? Yep. Item 18 is the brown bin update, extending the brown bin collection by 2 weeks. Can we agree? Yep. Okay. Item 19 is the property asset management report, Baker Street site and Parkway branching out. Any questions? Agreed. Thank you. For the rest of the